Well, welcome back to another Waynosfotos video, and I've got my hat on. I just almost forgot to put it on. But we got my hat on, and we're going to be talking about cycling, and today we're going to be talking specifically about safety. And the reason why I want to talk about safety, because there's been a number of wheels that have been coming out of China, and not necessarily a Chinese wheel, but it's a design criteria that in normal operational practices is not an issue, but in a failure scenario could be a problem. And because now we're moving heavily into disc wheels, this kind of makes the whole issue worse. So let's roll that intro and let's get into it, why we need to be concerned about this new design. Well, what it is that when we're using the spokes and the spokes are being mounted onto the hub, instead of using a bend or some way of fixing it into the hub, basically what they're doing is they're just using like a clamp or not like a clamp, like a tapered section that the spoke fits into. And when it fits into it, it sits snugly because it's under tension and it doesn't come out. But if the spoke is detensioned or break, then it can just fall out and come out because it's open on one side. So you can actually put the spoke in, clip it in, and then as you tighten it, it holds into the section like this. So as you put the spoke in like this, it fits in, and then because it gets tensioned, it can't come out. But as it loosens, it can come out. So that's how the principle works. Now, there's a concern is because we've gone to disc brakes. And when you use disc brakes, obviously the brake's on the hub, it's not on the rim. So when you brake, the forces are having to be transferred through the spokes. So you need the spokes. The spokes need to be able to take the braking forces through the spokes. And that's why we have cross-spoking on disc brake wheels. And on rim brake wheels, we can have radial spoking on the front, obviously not on the bank because we got driving force just like we have with a disc brake. So that's the reason why we need cross-spoking. But when we have this design, and one falls out, then what we do is we have a detensioning of other spokes because the whole rim starts to distort because all of those spokes counteract each other and allow you the other force, the forces that evened out between the spokes, to make sure that the wheel is held in a nice true state. So as one undoes, it comes out of true, and some of the spokes will detension. Now when this happens, it allows the other spokes to unclip from that hub housing and can just come out. Now this is where I've got a bit of a concern, because when you have a failure or a spoke, or you realize a spoke's broken, your natural thing is to slow down, like the brake and stop the bike, because you can see that the wheels are wonky or something's gone bing, as I normally get when a spoke breaks. So you want to slow down and bring the brake. So you put your brakes on, and then you're applying more forces for the spokes, which then can cause more problems. And if another one falls out, you can have a complete collapse of the wheel, and then you can face plant the bitumen, which is not fun. I can tell you right now, I've done that, and I've smashed up my face when I've planted the footpath. Not a nice exercise to do. And you can try it. You want to try and avoid that if you can. Anyway, so that's what I'm a little bit worried about these wheels. Now, as you say, 99.9% of the time you're riding along, there's no broken spoke, everything's hunky-dory. But in the situation of failure, because the wheels are made so lightweight now, there's no redundancy you have, because you could be talking about a 21 or 20 or round about there spoke wheel, especially if it's a performance carbon wheel, and this can give a bit of concern. So if I was a person, I would be very careful about buying these sorts of wheels, because spokes do break, and if you're not the lightest rider, then they do. I mean, I've got wheels and carbon wheels, and I've had spokes break. They just fatigue after time, and then they don't give any warning, and just go bing, and they break, and that's it. And you get another one put on, and away you go. Or you may have them all replaced if you think that they're all fatiguing, and away you go. It's not an issue. Like a broken spoke's a broken spoke. You just fix it and the wheel's good again. But in this situation, you can have a full catastrophic failure. You can get injured, and potentially even the wheel could be destroyed. I haven't done that experiment, but one thing I do know, if the spoke is not physically held in position, even though it's starting to detension, it can actually fall out, and that's the problem. So you're having an increased failure criteria with these wheels. Well, anyway, it's just a bit of something to be aware of when you're buying wheels, especially if you're a heavier rider and you do have wheels that do have spokes that break. You've had them break in the past. Might be best to keep away from this design of wheels. Anyway, that's my video for today, guys. Just basically to give you some awareness of these sorts of wheels. Pete Talker's also spoke about them, so jump over there and have a look at his videos as well, because he has some good information on them as well. So get his opinion as well, not just my opinion. Anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll see you next vid.